The meeting room was unnervingly silent, the air thick with tension. At the head of the long, polished oak table, Mr. Greg Thompson, the regional manager, stood confidently, smirking as though he had already won whatever battle was about to unfold. His tailored suit was immaculate, his tie perfectly knotted, and his demeanor oozed arrogance. He had built a reputation as a ruthless taskmaster, notorious for his sharp tongue and unyielding dismissal of anyone he deemed beneath him. Today, however, the storm brewing in the room wasn't about his power, it was about his downfall. Across the table sat an unassuming young woman, no older than 25. Her name was Natalie Bennett. She was dressed modestly in a plain white blouse and navy slacks, her posture calm yet resolute. Most of the employees in the room barely knew her, just another intern trying to make her mark. For months, she had quietly gone about her duties, enduring the sneers, criticism, and condescending remarks hurled her way by Mr. Thompson. To most, she was invisible. But today, Natalie was no longer content to remain in the shadows. "Ms. Bennett," Greg began, his voice dripping with sarcasm, "since you seem so eager to participate in this discussion, why don't you enlighten us with your brilliant insights on this quarter's performance? Or would that be asking too much?" A few muffled chuckles rippled through the room. Greg's loyal sycophants exchanged knowing glances, relishing yet another opportunity to watch their boss humiliate someone. Natalie met his gaze without flinching. Her calmness unnerved him, though he would never admit it. "Thank you, Mr. Thompson," Natalie replied evenly. Her voice was steady, her words deliberate. "I've actually prepared a detailed analysis of the performance metrics and the discrepancies I've noticed." Greg raised an eyebrow, his smirk widening. "Discrepancies? Oh, this should be good. Please, do share." Natalie opened a folder she had brought with her, carefully extracting a set of documents. She handed copies to the senior executives seated around the table, ignoring Greg's dismissive scoff. "If you'll look at the figures from the third quarter," she began, "you'll notice significant anomalies in the regional budgets. Funds have been redirected without proper authorization. Additionally, key client accounts have been mismanaged, leading to avoidable losses." Greg's smirk faltered for the briefest moment before he forced a laugh. "Redirected funds? Mismanaged accounts? Ms. Bennett, you've been here for what, 3 months? I doubt you even understand the intricacies of corporate finance." The room was so quiet you could hear the faint hum of the air conditioning. Natalie held her ground. "Actually, I understand it quite well," she said, her voice unwavering. "I also understand that the company's reputation is at risk because of decisions made under your leadership. Or should I say, lack of leadership." The tension in the room skyrocketed. Greg's face darkened, his carefully curated facade beginning to crack. "How dare you?" "I dare," Natalie interrupted, her voice growing firmer, "because the truth matters. I've spent weeks gathering evidence to support these claims. And I'm prepared to present it all right now." She pulled a USB drive from her folder and inserted it into the conference room's computer. The projector screen flickered to life, displaying a series of spreadsheets, email correspondences, and client feedback reports. Each slide painted a damning picture of negligence and abuse of power. The room erupted in whispers as the evidence mounted. Greg's usual bravado was nowhere to be found. Instead, his face turned an alarming shade of red. "This is absurd," he barked. "This so-called evidence is fabricated. Who do you think you are, coming in here and accusing me of corruption?" Natalie stepped closer to the screen, her composure unshaken. "I think," she said, her voice echoing in the room, "that it's time for the truth to come to light. And I think you should know who I really am." Greg froze. The employees exchanged puzzled glances, unsure of what was about to happen. Natalie reached into her bag and pulled out a sleek leather folder embossed with the company's logo. She opened it, revealing a gold-edged business card. In bold letters, it read, "Natalie Bennett, Chief Operations Strategist and Acting CEO Advisor. A collective gasp rippled through the room. Greg staggered backward, his jaw slack. "No," he muttered, shaking his head. This has to be a joke." Natalie's calm expression never wavered. "It's no joke, Mr. Thompson. I came to this company under my father's directive to assess its operations from the ground level. My father, your CEO, wanted an honest view of how employees are treated, how decisions are made, and where improvements are needed. And now, thanks to your behavior, I have plenty of material to report back." Greg's face contorted with a mix of rage and desperation. You set me up. This is entrapment." Natalie's eyes narrowed. "No, Mr. Thompson. This is accountability. You chose to mistreat employees, to misuse company resources, and to abuse your position. You made your choices, and now you'll face the consequences." The room erupted into murmurs again, employees too stunned to process the dramatic turn of events. Natalie raised a hand, silencing them. "To everyone here," she continued, "I want to apologize for the toxic environment you've endured. Change is coming. Effective immediately, Mr. Thompson is relieved of his duties." Greg opened his mouth to protest, but Natalie held up a document. "This is a termination notice, signed by the CEO himself. You're done here." The weight of her words hung in the air as Greg stumbled out of the room, his exit met with silence. Natalie turned back to the employees, her expression softening. "To those who've suffered under his leadership, I'm here to listen. Together, we'll rebuild this company into one that values integrity and respect." As the employees broke into applause, a janitor standing by the door smiled knowingly. The young woman who had started as just another intern had just orchestrated a moment they would never forget. Little did they know, this was only the beginning of Natalie's transformative impact on the company and its culture. The boardroom was buzzing with an energy unlike anything it had experienced before. As Greg Thompson stormed out of the room, the employees seated around the table exchanged glances filled with disbelief and excitement. For months, they had endured Greg's overbearing personality, his micromanagement, and his cutting remarks. Now, in a single decisive moment, it was all over. Natalie Bennett had not only revealed her true identity but had also set in motion the unraveling of Greg's toxic reign. But for Natalie, the real work was just beginning. After the meeting adjourned, Natalie remained seated, sifting through the documents Greg had left behind in his hurry to escape. A stack of client reports, budget proposals, and internal memos revealed just how deeply his negligence had impacted the company. Beyond the financial losses, Natalie could see the trail of demoralization he had left among the employees. Each memo carried undertones of dismissal, condescension, and disregard for the very people who had worked tirelessly to keep the company afloat. As the employees filed out, a middle-aged woman approached Natalie hesitantly. Her name tag identified her as Margaret, a senior analyst who had been with the company for over a decade. "Ms. Bennett," she began, her voice tinged with uncertainty. "Natalie," she corrected gently, offering a reassuring smile. "Please, call me Natalie." Margaret nodded, her shoulders relaxing slightly. "I just wanted to say, thank you for standing up to him. We've all been waiting for someone to call him out, but no one had the power to do it. Until now." Natalie's smile softened. "Margaret, you and everyone else here deserve better. My father didn't build this company on fear and intimidation, and I won't allow it to be run that way either. If there's anything you'd like to share, ideas, concerns, anything, my door is always open." Margaret's eyes glistened with gratitude. "Thank you, Natalie. That means a lot." As Margaret left, Natalie leaned back in her chair, her mind racing. Her father, Richard Bennett, had always emphasized the importance of empathy and accountability in leadership. "A company is only as strong as its people," he'd often told her. Natalie now understood the weight of those words more than ever. She had come into the company undercover to gain an honest perspective, and what she'd uncovered was a toxic culture that needed immediate attention. Over the next few days, Natalie threw herself into her work. She scheduled one-on-one meetings with employees across all departments, determined to hear their stories firsthand. It wasn't long before a pattern emerged. Greg's behavior had driven away some of the company's most talented individuals, alienated loyal clients, and fostered an atmosphere of fear and distrust. Each conversation was a reminder of the damage he had caused, and the challenge Natalie faced in repairing it. One afternoon, during a meeting with the HR team, Natalie came across an anonymous complaint that caught her attention. The complaint described an incident involving a junior employee named Alex, who had been publicly berated by Greg during a client presentation. The humiliation had been so severe that Alex had resigned the following day, leaving behind a promising career. The HR team had logged the incident but admitted they had been powerless to act against Greg's influence. Natalie frowned as she read the details. "Do we have Alex's contact information?" she asked. The HR manager, a reserved man named Daniel, nodded. "We do, but I'm not sure if reaching out would be appropriate. It's been months since he left." Natalie shook her head. "It's not just about appropriateness, Daniel. It's about accountability. If Alex left because of Greg's actions, we owe him an apology. And if he's open to it, I'd like to offer him an opportunity to return." Later that evening, Natalie picked up the phone and dialed Alex's number. The call went to voicemail, but she left a message explaining who she was and why she was calling. She didn't expect an immediate response, but to her surprise, Alex called back within the hour. "Ms. Bennett," he began cautiously, "I have to admit, I wasn't expecting this call. What can I do for you?" Natalie took a deep breath. "Alex, first of all, I want to apologize. I've recently become aware of what happened during your time at the company, and I want you to know that Greg Thompson's actions were unacceptable. He's no longer with us, and I'm committed to making things right. If you're open to it, I'd like to discuss the possibility of you rejoining the team." There was a long pause on the other end of the line. Finally, Alex spoke, his voice tinged with a mix of surprise and hope. "I appreciate the gesture, Ms. Bennett. It's not something I expected to hear. But I'll admit, I loved working there before everything went south. I'd be open to a conversation." "Wonderful," Natalie said, relief washing over her. "Let's set up a time to meet and discuss this further. I want to make sure we're creating an environment where you, and everyone else, can thrive." The call with Alex was a small victory, but it was a reminder of the work still to be done. Over the next few weeks, Natalie implemented a series of changes aimed at rebuilding trust and fostering a positive workplace culture. She introduced new policies to ensure transparency in decision-making, provided additional resources for employee development, and established an anonymous feedback system to give employees a voice without fear of retaliation. As the company began to heal, word of Natalie's efforts reached the broader business community. Clients who had been hesitant to renew their contracts started to return, impressed by the company's renewed commitment to integrity and respect. Employees who had left during Greg's tenure began reaching out, eager to come back and be part of the transformation. But not everyone was on board with the changes. A small group of senior executives, loyal to Greg, began pushing back, questioning Natalie's authority and decisions. They argued that her initiatives were too idealistic, that the company needed tough leadership to succeed. Natalie listened to their concerns but remained steadfast in her vision. She knew that change was never easy, but she also knew it was necessary. The turning point came during a quarterly review meeting. As Natalie presented the company's improved performance metrics, one of Greg's former allies, a finance director named Carl, spoke up. "With all due respect, Ms. Bennett," he said, his tone laced with skepticism, "your changes are costing us time and resources. We're a business, not a charity. Natalie met his gaze without flinching. "Carl, I understand your concerns, but let me ask you this. What is the cost of losing talented employees? Of alienating loyal clients? Of tarnishing our reputation? We're not just a business, we're a community. And a community thrives when its members are valued and respected." The room fell silent. Carl shifted uncomfortably in his seat, unable to counter her argument. Slowly, the tide began to turn. Employees who had been hesitant to embrace Natalie's vision started to see the results of her efforts, and even her critics couldn't deny the positive impact she was having. As Natalie left the meeting that day, she couldn't help but feel a sense of pride. The journey was far from over, but for the first time in a long time, the company was moving in the right direction. And for Natalie, that was worth every challenge she had faced, and every challenge still to come. The weeks that followed the pivotal quarterly review meeting were both exhilarating and exhausting for Natalie. With Greg's departure and her initiatives beginning to show results, she was finally able to take a moment to reflect on the whirlwind of changes she had implemented. But just as she started to feel a sense of accomplishment, the next challenge arrived, one she hadn't anticipated and one that would test her resolve more than anything before. It began innocuously enough, with a routine review of the company's pending contracts and financial reports. Natalie had assigned a small task force to audit the accounts Greg had managed before his ousting. The goal was to ensure that nothing had been overlooked during the transition. However, as the team delved deeper into the records, they unearthed a troubling discovery. Several discrepancies pointed to unauthorized expenditures, misallocated funds, and potential mismanagement of resources. Natalie's first instinct was disbelief. She knew Greg was a terrible leader, but this went beyond negligence. It hinted at deliberate malfeasance. She convened an emergency meeting with the audit team to understand the full scope of the issue. Samantha, a sharp and meticulous accountant, led the discussion. "Ms. Bennett," she began cautiously, "we've identified a series of transactions that were either not properly documented or outright fabricated. The amounts aren't small, we're talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars over the past year. These funds seem to have been funneled into accounts tied to shell companies." Natalie's stomach churned as Samantha continued. "At least 2 of these shell companies have direct links to Greg. If our findings are correct, he may have been embezzling funds from the company." The revelation hit like a freight train. The thought of Greg exploiting the company for personal gain was infuriating, but more than that, it felt like a betrayal of everything her father had worked so hard to build. "What's our next step?" Natalie asked, keeping her voice steady despite the storm of emotions inside her. "We've documented all the evidence," Samantha replied. "The next step would be to involve legal counsel and potentially law enforcement. But there's another layer to this. Several of these transactions involve ongoing client projects. If we don't address this carefully, it could harm our relationships and our reputation." Natalie nodded, absorbing the gravity of the situation. "We'll proceed with caution," she said. "I'll consult with our legal team immediately. Thank you, Samantha, and everyone else who worked on this. Your diligence might have just saved this company." Over the next few days, Natalie worked tirelessly to manage the fallout. She brought in the company's legal advisors, who confirmed the audit team's findings and recommended filing a formal complaint with the authorities. At the same time, Natalie drafted a communication plan to address the issue internally and externally. Transparency was key. She didn't want employees or clients to feel blindsided by the revelations. During a company-wide meeting, Natalie stood before the employees and laid out the situation with unwavering honesty. "We've discovered evidence of financial misconduct under the previous leadership," she began. "While this is a difficult truth to confront, I want you all to know that we are taking every possible step to address it. Legal actions are being pursued, and safeguards are being implemented to ensure this never happens again." Her candor was met with a mix of shock and admiration. Employees appreciated her openness and the decisive actions she was taking. However, the news sent ripples of uncertainty through the company. Questions loomed: how deeply would this scandal impact their operations? Would clients start to pull away? Could the company survive another blow to its reputation? As Natalie braced for the potential fallout, she found an unexpected ally in Alex, the junior employee she had persuaded to return. Alex had been quietly observing the changes Natalie was implementing, and his respect for her had grown. One afternoon, he approached her with an idea. "Natalie," he began, "I know things are tense right now, but I think this could also be an opportunity. Clients and employees need to see that we're more than just a company in crisis. They need to see that we're a company that learns and grows from our challenges. What if we launched a transparency initiative? Regular updates, open forums for employees to ask questions, and a public commitment to ethical practices?" Natalie's eyes lit up. "That's a fantastic idea, Alex. Let's put together a team to make it happen." The Transparency Initiative was rolled out within weeks. Employees were invited to participate in town hall meetings where they could voice their concerns and ideas. Clients received detailed updates about the steps being taken to rectify the situation and strengthen internal controls. The initiative not only calmed fears but also began to rebuild trust. Meanwhile, the investigation into Greg's activities gained momentum. Law enforcement uncovered a network of schemes he had orchestrated, from embezzlement to kickbacks. The case garnered media attention, and while the spotlight on the company wasn't entirely positive, Natalie's leadership during the crisis earned praise. She was interviewed by several outlets, where she reiterated her commitment to turning the situation into a catalyst for positive change. But the challenges didn't end there. As the company began to stabilize, another unexpected twist emerged. One of the shell companies linked to Greg's schemes turned out to have ties to a major competitor. This competitor, a ruthless and ambitious firm, had been attempting to undermine Natalie's company for years. It now appeared that Greg's actions might have been part of a larger conspiracy. The revelation raised the stakes significantly. Natalie knew she couldn't tackle this alone. She reached out to trusted advisors, including her father's old business partner, Robert, a seasoned executive with a wealth of experience. Together, they strategized how to address this new threat without derailing the company's progress. "It's a delicate situation," Robert advised. "You'll need to navigate this carefully. But one thing is clear: your transparency and integrity are your greatest assets. Use them." Natalie took his words to heart. She called a press conference to address the latest developments, openly acknowledging the challenges while emphasizing the company's resilience. "We've faced adversity before, and we've come out stronger," she said. "This time will be no different. To our employees, clients, and stakeholders, thank you for standing with us. Your trust means everything, and we will continue to earn it." The press conference was a turning point. Public perception shifted, and the company began to regain its footing. Clients who had been on the fence decided to renew their contracts, impressed by Natalie's unwavering commitment to accountability. Employees who had been disheartened found new motivation, inspired by the sense of purpose Natalie had instilled. As Natalie reflected on the events of the past few months, she realized how much she had grown. She had entered the company undercover, uncertain of her place and her abilities. Now, she stood as a leader who had not only weathered a storm but had also steered the company toward a brighter future. But the journey was far from over, and Natalie knew that the next chapter would bring its own set of challenges and opportunities. As the company regained its footing after the financial scandal and the shocking revelation of Greg's underhanded dealings, Natalie found herself once again facing an uphill battle. This time, however, the stakes were higher than ever. The competitor implicated in Greg's schemes had begun a smear campaign against Bennett Enterprises, using leaked information and sensationalized narratives to sow doubt among clients and stakeholders. It was a calculated effort to exploit the company's vulnerability, and it required immediate action. Natalie spent sleepless nights devising a strategy to counter the attacks. She knew that direct confrontation could backfire, responding aggressively might only add fuel to the fire. Instead, she opted for a more measured approach, focusing on demonstrating the company's integrity through its actions rather than words. This meant doubling down on transparency, delivering on promises, and showing clients and the public that Bennett Enterprises was a company of resilience and principles. One evening, as Natalie pored over client reports and upcoming project plans, an idea struck her. She decided to launch a high-profile initiative that would not only highlight the company's values but also create a tangible impact. Inspired by Alex's earlier suggestion about fostering trust, she envisioned a community-focused program that could redefine Bennett Enterprises' public image. The Empower the Future initiative was born. It was a multifaceted program designed to support underserved communities by providing scholarships, mentorship opportunities, and resources for small businesses. The initiative would not only showcase the company's commitment to social responsibility but also create a narrative that overshadowed the competitors' smear campaign. Natalie knew that action spoke louder than words, and this initiative was her way of showing the world what Bennett Enterprises stood for. The announcement of Empower the Future was met with mixed reactions initially. While many praised the company for its forward-thinking approach, skeptics accused Natalie of trying to distract from the ongoing investigations. But Natalie remained undeterred. She worked tirelessly alongside her team to ensure the program's success. She personally visited community centers, spoke with small business owners, and attended scholarship award ceremonies, making it clear that this initiative was more than just a PR move, it was a genuine effort to make a difference. Amid the chaos of the campaign, Natalie received a surprising message from an old colleague of her father's, a retired executive named Eleanor. Eleanor had been a close friend of Natalie's father and had watched Bennett Enterprises grow from a fledgling company to an industry leader. She had stayed out of the corporate world for years but was drawn back by the challenges Natalie faced. "Your father would be proud of you, Natalie," Eleanor said during their first meeting. "But you're fighting a war on too many fronts. You need to focus your energy and build alliances." Eleanor's advice resonated deeply with Natalie. She realized that while she had been doing everything in her power to protect the company, she hadn't fully tapped into the network of people who believed in Bennett Enterprises and its mission. With Eleanor's help, Natalie began reaching out to long-standing clients, former executives, and even competitors who respected the company's legacy. These conversations were illuminating, and many offered their support, providing testimonials, endorsing the Empower the Future initiative or simply sharing words of encouragement. Meanwhile, the smear campaign escalated. The rival company released doctored documents and manipulated data to make it seem as though Bennett Enterprises was complicit in Greg's crimes. The accusations were baseless, but they created a media frenzy that threatened to undo all the progress Natalie had made. To combat this, Natalie made a bold decision. She agreed to a live televised interview, knowing it was her chance to set the record straight in front of millions. The interview was a nerve-wracking experience. Natalie was grilled about the financial scandal, the rival company's allegations, and the challenges of stepping into her father's shoes. But she held her ground, answering each question with honesty and poise. When asked about the accusations, she replied, "The truth has a way of coming to light. Bennett Enterprises is not defined by the mistakes of a few individuals but by the integrity and dedication of its people. We've faced adversity, but we've also grown stronger because of it. Our actions will speak for themselves." The interview was a turning point. Viewers were impressed by Natalie's composure and sincerity, and public opinion began to shift. Clients who had been on the fence about renewing their contracts decided to stay with Bennett Enterprises, citing Natalie's leadership as a key factor. Even employees who had been skeptical of the company's future felt a renewed sense of pride and purpose. But just as Natalie started to breathe a sigh of relief, an unexpected twist threw her off balance. One of the scholarship recipients from the Empower the Future initiative, a young woman named Ava, reached out to Natalie with troubling information. Ava's parents were small business owners who had recently been approached by representatives of the rival company. The representatives had offered them financial incentives to publicly denounce Bennett Enterprises and withdraw their support for the initiative. Natalie was furious. The rival company's tactics had crossed a new line, targeting vulnerable individuals in an attempt to sabotage her efforts. She immediately convened a meeting with her legal team and advisors to discuss the next steps. "We need to expose them for what they're doing," she said, her voice firm. "This isn't just about defending our company anymore. It's about protecting the people we've committed to helping." With the help of Ava and her parents, Natalie gathered evidence of the rival company's underhanded tactics. Emails, recorded conversations, and financial documents painted a clear picture of their attempts to undermine the initiative. Natalie decided to take the evidence public, holding a press conference where she presented the findings. "This isn't just an attack on Bennett Enterprises," she told the gathered reporters. "It's an attack on the very communities we're trying to support. But we won't be intimidated. We will continue to stand by our values and fight for what's right." The press conference was a dramatic moment that further solidified Natalie's reputation as a leader of integrity. The rival company's actions backfired spectacularly, with public outrage turning against them. Investigations into their practices were launched, and their credibility took a severe hit. As the dust settled, Natalie reflected on the journey she had been through. The challenges she faced had tested her in ways she never imagined, but they had also revealed her strength and resilience. She had not only protected her father's legacy but also carved out her own path, proving that leadership was about more than titles or power, it was about principles and perseverance. The Empower the Future initiative continued to thrive, becoming a cornerstone of Bennett Enterprises' identity. Natalie's vision for the company was no longer just a dream, it was a reality that inspired employees, clients, and communities alike. And as she looked toward the future, Natalie knew that the lessons she had learned would guide her through whatever challenges lay ahead. The journey was far from over, but for the first time in a long time, Natalie felt ready to embrace it. In the aftermath of Natalie's press conference, Bennett Enterprises experienced a surge of public support that exceeded all expectations. The revelation of the rival company's underhanded tactics had not only exonerated Natalie and her team but had also ignited a broader conversation about corporate ethics and accountability. Across the media landscape, stories of Natalie's resilience and her unwavering commitment to integrity became the centerpiece of discussions about modern leadership. Yet, as the company regained its footing and Natalie's efforts began to bear fruit, she knew there were still challenges ahead. One of the most immediate issues was restoring internal morale. While the public now viewed Bennett Enterprises as a beacon of integrity, the internal culture was still healing from the scars of betrayal and uncertainty left by Greg's actions. Natalie recognized that healing her team would require more than public victories, it demanded empathy, transparency, and a commitment to rebuilding trust. She began by hosting a series of open forums where employees were encouraged to voice their concerns, share their ideas, and ask questions directly. Natalie personally attended each session, listening intently and responding with honesty. One employee, a longtime engineer named Marcus, stood during one of the forums and shared a heartfelt sentiment. "I've been here for 20 years, he said. And for a while, it felt like everything we'd built was crumbling. But seeing how you've handled everything, Natalie, it gives me hope. Not just for the company, but for all of us." The forums proved to be a turning point for internal morale. Employees began to feel a renewed sense of ownership and pride in their work, and a culture of open communication started to take root. Natalie also made it a priority to recognize the contributions of her team, introducing monthly awards for innovation, teamwork, and community impact. These efforts weren't just symbolic, they were a testament to Natalie's belief that the strength of Bennett Enterprises lay in its people. As the company's internal dynamics improved, so did its external prospects. The Empower the Future initiative continued to grow, attracting attention from media outlets, philanthropists, and even government agencies. Natalie was invited to speak at conferences and forums about the role of corporate responsibility in driving societal change. Each appearance was an opportunity for her to share the values that guided Bennett Enterprises and to inspire others to adopt similar principles. One of the most transformative moments came when a renowned business leader, Henry Carlisle, reached out to Natalie. Henry, the founder of a global tech empire, had been a longtime admirer of Bennett Enterprises. "I've been following your journey," he said during their first meeting. "What you've accomplished in the face of adversity is nothing short of remarkable. I believe we can do great things together." Henry proposed a partnership that would amplify the impact of the Empower the Future initiative. His company had resources and technology that could enhance the program's reach, and he was eager to collaborate. Natalie saw the potential in the partnership but approached it with cautious optimism. She insisted on maintaining the integrity of the initiative and ensuring that the partnership aligned with Bennett Enterprises' values. The collaboration turned out to be a game-changer. With Henry's support, the initiative expanded to new regions, offering scholarships to thousands of students, mentoring small business owners, and funding community development projects. The impact was profound, not just for the beneficiaries but also for Bennett Enterprises itself. The company's reputation soared, attracting new clients and partnerships that solidified its position as an industry leader. Despite these successes, Natalie remained grounded. She knew that the journey wasn't about personal accolades or corporate dominance, it was about creating a legacy that her father would be proud of. One evening, as she walked through the halls of the company's headquarters, she paused in front of a portrait of her father. The image, a reminder of the man who had built the company from the ground up, brought a surge of emotion. "I hope I've done you justice, Dad," she whispered. "I hope I've honored what you started." As Natalie continued to lead the company into a new era, she faced a surprising development. An investigative journalist named Clara reached out with an intriguing offer. Clara had been following the story of Bennett Enterprises closely and had uncovered evidence suggesting that Greg's actions might have been part of a larger conspiracy involving other companies in the industry. She proposed collaborating on an exposé that could not only uncover the truth but also prevent similar incidents in the future. The decision was a difficult one. While Natalie was committed to transparency, she was wary of reigniting the controversy that had nearly destroyed the company. She spent days deliberating, consulting with her advisors and trusted colleagues. Ultimately, she decided to proceed, driven by the belief that shining a light on corruption was the right thing to do. The exposé, published as a joint effort between Bennett Enterprises and Clara's media outlet, sent shockwaves through the industry. It revealed a web of deceit and corruption that extended far beyond Greg's actions, implicating several major players in unethical practices. The fallout was immense, leading to investigations, resignations, and a renewed call for corporate accountability. For Natalie, the exposé was a bittersweet victory. While it vindicated her efforts and reinforced the company's reputation for integrity, it also underscored the challenges of navigating a complex and often ruthless industry. Yet, she remained undeterred. The experience had strengthened her resolve to lead with purpose and to ensure that Bennett Enterprises remained a force for good. As the years passed, Natalie's leadership transformed Bennett Enterprises into more than just a successful company. It became a symbol of resilience, integrity, and the power of principled leadership. Employees, clients, and communities alike looked to the company as an example of what could be achieved when values guided decisions. In her personal life, Natalie found balance and fulfillment. She reconnected with old friends, traveled to places she'd always dreamed of visiting, and even took up painting, a hobby her father had loved. Through it all, she carried with her the lessons of the journey that had defined her early years as CEO. One evening, during the annual gala for the Empower the Future initiative, Natalie took the stage to address the attendees. Looking out at the faces of those who had supported her and the company through thick and thin, she felt a deep sense of gratitude. "Tonight isn't just about celebrating our achievements," she said. "It's about honoring the values that brought us here: integrity, resilience, and the belief that we can make a difference. Bennett Enterprises isn't just a company, it's a community. And together, we've proven that even in the face of adversity, we can rise stronger." As the crowd erupted into applause, Natalie felt a sense of peace she hadn't experienced in years. The journey had been long and arduous, filled with challenges and unexpected twists. But it had also been transformative, shaping her into the leader she was always meant to be. And as she looked toward the future, she knew that the best was yet to come.